Hello guys, and welcome to another Python tutorial video. In this video we will be talking about loops, and this video specifically we address while loops and for loops. Now, why do you need loops? Before we talk about that, let me just quickly run my cmd and then create my files. So remember guys, I always like to create my files on desktop, and I'm inside desktop, and the next thing I want to do is just create my file and open it using this type null command, which we have learned in previous video. Okay, so I'm creating code.py, and I will use the code editor, Visual Studio Code, to open this file right away on one line of cmd command. So we are here, and the next thing we want to talk about is while loops. Okay, so while loops. Now let's say we want to print out from numbers 1 to 4. So this is loops. We want to print out numbers 1 to 4. Normally, since from what we've learned so far in this course, we will just do something that says 1, right? And then we would easily duplicate this code. Okay, so we'll just duplicate this code like so, like this, and then we would change the numbers here. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and save that. So if we save this code, fail to save, why? Alright, okay, so I'll just save that. So this code is saved. Now what we have now is simply a code that just prints 1 on first line, prints 2 on second line, and prints 3 and 4 on the third and fourth line. Now if I run this code, you would see that it works. Okay, python code.py, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what you notice that this particular code is performing a repetitive task. So on each line we are printing, instead of doing this, what if we had to print up to 100? Do you really have the time to write 100 print statements? Okay, so that's where loop comes in, and a better way of doing this kind of repetitive tasks is using the while loops or the for loops. Now I will tell you the difference between the while loop and the for loops, even though they can be used to achieve the same purpose. Okay, so simple, a code that prints 1, 2, 3, 4 on your console. Right now, let me use the while loops to achieve the same thing. You write a while loops by saying while. Okay, while, that's the keyword, and then you give it a condition, and after the condition it checks if it's true. If it's true, it performs a certain task. So I'm just going to say print that particular thing I want. So now, what is the condition we want to check? Before we check a condition, we have to set a variable. Okay, so this is while loops. I'm going to say while x, right, is less than 5, for instance, print x. Okay, print x. Now before I do this, I have to tell it what x currently is. So I have to tell it, okay, x is currently 1, right? So x is currently 1. I'll save that. Now one more thing is missing from this while loop. If I run this while loop, it's going to start looping. Okay, the first time it will iterate, it will check for x. It will see that, oh, x is 1 and 1 is less than 5. It's going to print 1. The next time it will iterate, it will check for 2. It will see that, oh, it's less than 5, and it's going to print 2. Now it will check, and you see that x is still 1 over here. Now what you need to do is you need to increase x after each iteration, in the sense that it will get to a point where the condition is going to be evaluated to false, and the code is going to break or is going to stop. Okay, so you don't want to do an infinite loop. If I save this and run this without giving it a condition that evaluates to false, I'm going to get an infinite loop. okay, hereby crashing my program, or not just working the way I want. So I've not given it a condition that evaluates to false, and I'm simply going to run this, and you see exactly what I'm saying. So it keeps printing out 1 1 1 forever, it doesn't stop. Okay, now what you want to do is come out of the loop. So I'll just close this CMD so you can see the result of an infinite loop, and you really don't want that. And I'll go back to my desktop, okay, and I will not run the program. I would give it a condition that evaluates to false first before coming back here to run the program. And what is that? After each iteration, or after each print statement, I have to increase x by 1. Okay, so I would say x, right, equals to x plus 1. So the new x will be x plus 1. The old x, this one right here, plus this one right here, plus 1. Okay, now instead of writing x equals x plus 1, there's a better way to do this. You can just write x plus equals 1. So x plus equals 1. This is like a shorthand way to write x equals x plus 1. So if you save this and you run this loop right now, you see that everything works fine. So save this. Sorry guys, so I haven't run this. Okay, so python code.py, and you see I get the same output as my print1, print2, print. Where this is nice is that if you do as long as x is less, if you do x, okay, so here x is equals to 1, right? If you want to print from 1 to 100, for instance, you can just put 101 and save. Okay, now if I go back here and just clear this, right, bring this up, and then I say Python, and you see I have 1 to 100 being printed out to my command prompt here. So so you can see the power of while loops. Right now, the same output that has been achieved using a while loop, you can actually use a for loop to achieve the same thing. So this is what this is how you write a while loop. First you have to define your variable, of course, and then you have to say while your variable is true. Okay, so it checks for the statement. If the statement is true, okay, then it performs a certain task, and then you have to write a code that actually terminates the while loop. So you want to avoid infinite loops at all costs. Okay, so you have to write a condition that terminates the while loop, and you can either do this or you can simply use this break keyword. Okay, so you can use the break keyword. So while x is less than 101, print x, then break. Okay, so break keyword also terminates the while loop. So we'll leave it like this, and then we want to talk next about the for loops, guys. Now the for loop is easy. In Python, you simply write the for loops using, okay, so I will just comment this out. So your comment, you go to toggle block comment. So shift alternate A is going to help you do like a block comment, right? Shift alternate A in Visual Studio Code. So for the for loops, guys, this is the syntax of for loop. You do for, and then you specify any variable you want. So for I, right, then the in, and then it's expecting a list of values. So I'm going to just do for I in 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, right? For I in 1, 2, 3, 4, print I. Okay, then it's expecting, of course, a block of code to run. So I'll save that like this, and then I'll run this for loop. So when I run this for loop right here, I get the same result as my while loop. So I get 1, 2, 3, 4 being printed out to console. If I add one more number, say 5, and save that, so it just iterates 5 times. It just iterates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it prints whatever the value of I is, which is iterating in this list right now. Okay, so if I run this new code, I'll just get 1 2 3 4 5, which I can see right here. Now another thing you need to know about the for loop is that instead of giving it a list, say 1 2 3 4 5, you can use the range keyword. Okay, so for I in range, and then you put 5, you save that and print I and see what happens. Note that the value is going to be slightly different because now the range will make this Python code start at 0 instead of 1. So it's going to start at 0 and it's going to loop 5 times. So it will always print the very value of the range minus 1. So here's what you get on your command prompt when you run the code. So it starts at 0 1 2 3 4, but if you notice, from 0 to 4 is 5 values. Okay, so it's still iterating 5 times but counting from 0. Now if you want it to print from 1 to what, to 4, right, it's always print 1 less than the given value. You just put 1 here and then comma, so S. So once you put 1 and 5, that means you're telling it please start at 1 and then end at 4. Okay, because it's always printing 1 less than the end value. Okay, so this is the start value 1 and 5 becomes the end value when you're using the range keyword. So I'll just run that and you see it starts at 1 2 3 and it terminates at 4. Okay, so that is the for loop. Now one more value we want to talk about in this for loop is the fact that you can actually give it a third argument. Okay, so I can give it a third argument like this, for example 3 or 2. Okay, and I'll save this. Now what this means is that start at 1, end at 4, but increase each value with 2. So let me just increase this 5 so it becomes 10. So I'm saying start at 1, end at 10, but increase the value with 2 after each iteration. That is what I'm saying. So if I come back here, okay, and I clear my screen and run the code once again, you can see I start at 1, then I add 2 and I get 3, I add 2 again, I get 5, I add 2, 7, 2, 9. It always prints 1 less than the end value. So this is what you can get using the range keyword. Now let us do one more example under the for statement and we will see exactly what we can achieve using the for statement. Okay, supposing I want to Control S. So using the for loop, supposing you want to print out values, odd numbers, okay, or even numbers from 1 to 10, all the even numbers from 1 to 10. How do you do that using the for statement? Now this is where the combination of the for statement and conditionals come into play. So if I want to do something like that, I'll just write for I in a range, right, in a range, and I'll say 11. Remember, why am I using 11? Because it's going to print from the beginning, which is 0 to 10, and I'm looking for the odd numbers from 1 to 10. So in that range I would say this, and then I would give it I'll tell it to print the even numbers. But how do I tell it to print the even numbers? I have to use conditionals, and I have to simply say if I, right, the modulo symbol 2 is equal to 0. So if you divide I by 2 and you get 0, right, or it doesn't have a remainder, that's what I mean. If you divide I by 2 and the answer doesn't have a remainder, okay, that means it's an even number. Okay, so if you have this, remember your if statement, guys. If you've forgotten if statement, you watch the previous video or you watch the old video and you get it. So if this is true, print I, okay, and then I'll save this. So remember that with the if statement, if statement can stand alone. So you can just write if I modulo 2 is equal to 0, print I, and this is going to work. So let's run the code and see exactly what we have. So I turn, and you see I have 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Now it's always starting from 0, so if I want it to start from 1, I have to tell it to start from 1 and end at 10. So I'll save this, and then I'll run this as well once again, and you see I have 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, guys. So this is really just like an introduction to a loop. We've talked about the while loop, and now we've seen the for loops. Now one more example before we go. Supposing you want to print you want to just print out something like a timetable, for instance, on your console. So your console should give you the timetable and then the answer for the timetable. You can simply do that using your for loops. Okay, so how do you do that? You can do, okay, for I in range, 12, for instance. Okay, so, and you can tell it to specifically start at 1 and end at 12. So if it's going to end at 12, you need to put 13 there. Okay, so print something. Right now, since you are trying to do the timetable, that means you want to have something that says something like this on your console: 2, okay, for example, 2 times 1, then you have the answer, okay, and up to 12, right? Up to 12. So you are dealing with two values here. Now you're dealing with this and this. What you want to do down here is come down and write your print statement. Okay, now your print statement is going to be, you are going to format it, right? You format your print statement like this, and then you would copy this code. So you have 2 times, and you open the brackets. In it you put your I, and then you have your equal to, then you have to open another bracket, then you have in it you have your I times 2. So inside this bracket is what will give you the answer of the multiplication. So let's run the code now and see exactly what we have. So I open my command prompt, clear the screen first, and then I'll run the code. So by typing python code.py, and fair enough, you can see what the code runs. So the code is going to run smoothly as we expect. So thank you for watching this tutorial. I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.